Yes, I am a ninja.
I read the rules before I broke them. I broke the chains before they choked me out. Now I pay close attention. Really learned the code.
Hey friends, it is part 2, chapter 4 of 1984. What's up, friends? Oh man, we're gonna wing it, and I guess wing it, even though I do have some notes here, but wing it in the best possible way. Because let me tell you something. Now, by the time you actually watch this video, it's gonna be a couple of weeks from now, I think, because I'm pretty far ahead in these videos. But my wife, as of course some of you know, because I told some people, but my wife had our second baby, and I am on no sleep, and it's all good. But I don't know what time it is, and I don't know whether I'm coming or going. And already stuff is messed up because I'm on water and not coffee for whatever reason. And I don't have my glasses on, and my hair's not did, and I'm back to the sweater instead of the dress shirts. And so we're all a little topsy-turvy. And it's okay. It's okay. It's going to be good. Now, the true test is going to be whoever actually watches these videos. And because as we go on, I try and share a little bit more about myself. And I as you get older, you start getting the the nose hairs that get pretty long. And I know that this is a little bit personal, maybe a little bit, I don't know, but we're in the tree of trust, so I'm sharing. And the nose hairs get a little bit long, and they bother me, and it's horrible. And so if you ever see those videos of the people that get the inside of their nose waxed, is they put the wax inside the nose, and then they take something like a Q-tip, right, until it dries, and then they wiggle it around, and then they go, bam, and they take it out. I want to get that done so badly. You have no idea. I want to get that done so badly. But then I looked into it, and apparently it's not good for you. Of course, your nose hairs, they catch a lot of not so good stuff that's from going into your body. So if you don't have any nose hairs, then that's not good. It's not good because it helps to I don't know, maybe prevent sickness or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, I did contemplate getting that done, and just risk, maybe catching a little cold or something like that. But I looked into it, and they're like, it's not normal, first of all, and you shouldn't do it because it's not really good for you. So that scared me enough to not do it, but boy, do I ever want to do it. So that's just a little bit more information about your teacher. And so I'm sorry if that's awkward for you to hear, but again, we're in the tree of trust. We share. And honestly, after being in quarantine for as long as we've been in, things are starting to get loopy, and that's okay. It makes for a fun time. Anyway, all right. And now I realize I went right into the song, and I didn't even introduce what... usually I kind of introduce what chapter we're on, the song plays, and then I repeat where we're at, but I realized I went right into the song. And I was like, forget what we've done before. We're going to do a whole new thing, apparently. Anyway, but yeah, this is part 2, chapter 4 of 1984. And my friends, how you holding up? How you doing? You doing all right? This is a classic. And so it can be tough to do on your own. But I think you're killing it so far. It's hard to tell. Anyway, this chapter, a couple of really important things. And so, as always, let's get right into it. And so the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the very beginning in the first couple of lines, we can already assume, safely assume that Winston has gone ahead and rented that room above Mr. Charrington's shop, which we knew was coming because he had toyed with the idea for so many chapters. And so he goes ahead, he rents the room, and he is there waiting for Julia. And this shows some trust that Winston has in Mr. Charrington. And there was the part at the beginning of the novel where even Mr. Charrington comments that everybody deserves privacy. So that's kind of interesting. And so he is there waiting for her. Now, while he is waiting for her, Winston hears the singing of a prole woman down below. And so here's kind of maybe your first note for the chapter, which is that, first of all, you can call her the singing prole woman. She's never given a name, so that's the most accurate description for her. So she is the singing prole woman. And because we're going to encounter her a couple of times, and of course, she's always singing. And if you look at the lyrics, I meant to have the lyrics in front of me, and now I can't. You probably can't see, but I'm using actually both Lord of the Flies and 1984 as a way to kind of raise up the mic. And now I can't get to the book without actually lowering the mic and ruining my whole setup here. My very professional setup. So anyway, if you take a look at the lyrics that she sings, first of all, the lyrics are so depressing. And you'll also notice that it's not in regular English. It's in Old English. And I was going to read it to you as a little treat because I took Old English at Laurier, got a C+, no big deal. And I was going to read it out to you. But I don't have it in front of me. So you kind of miss out on that. And it's all good. But she's singing these lyrics that are so depressing. And almost kind of foul, yet she sings them so beautifully. And so as I have up on the screen here, well, why is this so strange? And maybe this is strange because she is, again, the proles are the poorest of the poor. So what do they have to sing about? And on top of that, sing so beautifully about? But again, don't forget something that I've repeated over and over again, that the proles live very similar lives to the way that we do. And so they're very pacified people. And so they don't think that there's anything wrong with life. And so she's probably got every reason to sing because she's free. And like I said, my wife and I just had a baby, and she's upstairs with both kids. And she's texting me, and I know she's probably texting me to tell me to come upstairs, but I can't because I'm in the middle of this. So she's just going to have to wait a little bit. And it's all good. So, the singing prole woman. This is... so, first of all, what I want you to kind of make note of, aside from just her name, or the title that we're going to give her, is that she represents two things. The first thing that she represents is strength. And your note here should be that the way that she represents strength is because not only the sheer numbers of proles that exist, which we've talked about, making up 80% of the population of Oceania, so we knew that already. But the other way that she represents strength is actually in her body type. So these people are the poorest of the poor, yet somehow she's got these brick red forearms, and she's kind of a bigger lady. Later on, Julia is actually going to comment about how wide she is in the hips. So it's kind of interesting. Poorest of the poor, yet having the body type of strength. And the other thing that she represents is fertility, because what the singing prole woman is actually doing while she's singing is she's pegging up diapers on a clothing line. And so it's this idea that she's not only able to have children, but she's able to have as many children as she wants, which of course adds to the sheer numbers that the proles actually that the Pearls actually have. And not only to have as many children as they want, but to raise them in whatever manner they want. So there's quite a bit that this singing Pearl woman represents, and those would be the two big things. And so when Winston hears her, she's singing so beautifully, looking the way that she does, doing what she's doing, and it is very interesting to Winston. On page 147, Julia finally arrives, and she brings with her some real goods. And what I mean by real goods, I mean not the Victory cigarettes that Winston is used to, or the Victory coffee, or the saccharin tablets that he's used to. She brings the real stuff. Very similar to how she had the real chocolate from chapters ago. And so up here on the slide, of course, you can see some of the stuff that she brings. She brings real sugar, real tea, real bread, real coffee. And Winston, of course, asks where she got it from, and she says that she got it on the black market. Now, at this point in the novel, if I hadn't already ruined for you that she is trustworthy, because sometimes I don't, and I allow my class to kind of linger a little bit as to whether or not she's trustworthy. Most students use this particular scene as a way to say that Julia is not trustworthy. How did she get those items? What is the black market? And so on. But I've already ruined for you that she is trustworthy, so she has procured these items on the black market. She says there's a lot of this kind of stuff going around, and you just got to search for it. And she does, and she brings it. And she brings it to Mr. Charrington's room so that obviously they can both enjoy it, which they do. One of the things that they make, I think, quite often is coffee. In the room as well, Julia, I just thought I'd make note of this really quickly, is that Julia puts on makeup and she puts on perfume, which of course are two items that make her feel feminine, right? They're symbols of femininity. And she puts them on and she says, in here, like in this room, in Mr. Charrington's room, she's going to feel like a woman, right? To quote Shania Twain. She's going to feel like a woman, and the party overalls make her feel genderless. It makes everybody kind of feel genderless. Everybody wears the exact same uniform. And so she says, but in here, meaning Mr. Charrington's room, she says she is going to feel like a woman. And so she puts on the makeup and the perfume, and she even comments that at some point she's going to put on a dress. Good. Alrighty. We're moving at a good clip. Winston and Julia, I believe, are in bed, and as they're kind of in the middle of chatting, and I can't remember what they're chatting about, but in the middle of their conversation, Julia is screaming at a rat, which has kind of poked its nose out of the wainscoting of the room. And she scares it away. I think she throws a shoe at it or something like that, and scares the rat away. When Julia explains to Winston what it was, is he closes his eyes so tightly and he begs Julia to stop the description of what she has seen. And so we find out actually that Winston is incredibly terrified of rats. So I told you from the very beginning, when we were actually in class together, that throughout this novel there are memories, there are dreams, and there is a nightmare. And I told you that as much as possible, I will make sure that I clarify which is which. And we've had some memories so far. We've had 3 dreams, and here is the nightmare that you can see on this slide. So the nightmare that Winston has, he recalls a wall of darkness, and on the other side of it, there are creatures. And in his nightmare, he never actually sees what the creatures are, but internally, he kind of knows that it's rats on the other side of the wall. and it terrifies him greatly. So as you can see on the slide here, it says that the significance of the nightmare and these rats are not. We don't know what the significance is yet, but we will come to find out. Good. Julia makes one last comment to say that she will, the next time they come back, she'll make sure to cover up the hole in the wainscoting so that the rat cannot come back. All right, and this is kind of the last piece here, I think, which is the coral paperweight. The coral paperweight, and even if this were to happen in class, I never usually explain this part well, the symbolism of the coral paperweight and how it has changed, but I'm going to try my best. Before, when we talked about the coral paperweight, when he first bought it from Mr. Charrington, the coral paperweight to Winston represented two things that I highlighted for you, which is beauty and history. And now it has, and I told you that it was going to change over the course of the novel, and here we are. And at the end of this chapter, he looks at the coral paperweight as a symbol of their lives together. And so he sees the rainwatery glass, appearance of the coral paperweight as their world that they live in, where they are free and they can be just normal, live normal lives together. And the little piece of coral in the middle is them, is them existing in this world that belongs to just them. And so I guess your note to yourself could be that the coral paperweight, although it still represents beauty and history, also represents a kind of paradise, an imagined world where Winston and Julia exist together and can be free. And the connection that I think I put here on the PowerPoint is that the room above Mr. Charrington's shop that they have rented and they're currently spending time in, that's their paradise. That's the imagined world that Winston thinks about. And the reason being, most obviously, that in that room, they can not only be together, but they are there and free. They can say what they want, they can do what they want, and they don't have to worry about anything. So this room above Mr. Charrington's shop is their paradise. It's a place where they can be free, as represented by the coral paperweight. I think that's a pretty good way of explaining that. If you're still confused, you know how to message me. So feel free to do that. But I think that's it. So those are kind of the big takeaways. So you want to make sure that the singing pearl woman, Winston's nightmare, and just the significance of the coral paperweight and how that changes. So, my friends, that's it. That's how we do it. And as always, reach out if you need me. Message me, and we can chat and let me know how you're keeping on. Alrighty? Until next time.
I learned to read the map before I hit the road.
Hey yo, I know you never heard this before, but I'd rather lose a fight than miss the war. And I ain't wishing competition or fishing for it. I'm just living in a system, conditions are poor. I've been lost in the rhythm.